Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining the Canadian Nuclear Isotope Council again today for yet another exciting webinar as part of our webinar series, which is presented in partnership with our friends at the Canadian Medical Isotope Ecosystem. My name is Melody Greaves. I am the Executive Director of the CNIC, and I'm very happy today to welcome a panel of industry and clinical experts for this discussion. For anyone who's not yet familiar with the CNIC, we are the voice of the isotope and radiopharmaceutical industry in Canada, and work in collaboration with our 100 plus members now to raise awareness for the important role that isotopes play in modern medicine and our everyday lives, and work to eliminate barriers to unleashing Canada's full isotope leadership. What's truly key to the success of the CNIC, however, is the collaboration that we have across the entire industry and supply chain, across healthcare, research, and clinical spaces, and with governments, in order to identify challenges and opportunities and work together to grow the sector. As part of our Isotopes for Hope campaign, which we launched a couple of years ago, we have envisioned a goal of doubling Canada's production of isotopes by 2030, all while improving access here in Canada. So events like these are really designed to bring together leaders in conversations about what barriers might stand in our way, and how we can improve the industry's ability to navigate the manufacturing, commercialization, and regulatory landscapes here in Canada. So with that, I'd like to welcome our moderator who will be leading a conversation on this topic this morning. Please welcome Kathryn Hayashi, who is the President and CEO of Triumph Innovations, as well as the co-lead for the Canadian Medical Isotope Ecosystem. CMIE works to strengthen the sector by connecting organizations, creating jobs, and helping to fund the next generation of medical isotope programs. Thank you, Kathryn, for joining us today, and to CMIE for supporting this webinar. Over to you, Kathryn.
Thanks so much, Melody. I think it's really been such an honor and pleasure to be involved with the CMIE project in partnership with the CNIC. We're very proud of the work that we've been doing in networking and collaboration, and also through our development fund, the CMIE-DF. This is a fund that is set to fund the next generation of medical isotope technologies in Canada, and we've had 2 calls for proposals so far. We expect the results of our second call to be announced shortly, and we're hoping to have a third call actually this year. So keep your eyes peeled for those announcements. So we're really happy to be part of the sponsoring for this third in a series of investment and commercialization focus webinars. I'd like to briefly introduce some of our panel members. I'll just start with my list. Dr. Brad Wouters, Executive Vice President of the University Health Network. Brad is an internationally recognized leader and cancer researcher. He became Executive Vice President at UHN in 2016, and prior to that was the Interim Director of Research at Princess Margaret since 2014. He joined UHN in 2008 as a Senior Scientist and Director of the Princess Margaret Hypoxia Program, and has held faculty appointments at the University of Toronto in the Department of Medical Biophysics and the Department of Radiation Oncology. Prior to that, he was Professor and Head of Experimental Radiation Oncology at Maastricht University in the Netherlands. And as EVP of Science and Research, Brad is focused on creating an environment that incentivizes, facilitates, rewards excellence in basic translational and clinical research across all elements of UHN. Thank you for joining us, Brad. We also have with us Lana Janes, who is co-founder and Chief Operating Officer of Abdera Therapeutics. Lana has more than 20 years of public and private company management and operations experience, spanning the full life cycle of therapeutic product development. She's a co-founder of Abdera, having led the incubation and spin-out of the company from Edmare Bioinnovations, where she was a venture partner. Prior to that, Lana was Chief Patent Officer of QLT, where for 12 years she was responsible for all aspects of global IP and strategic lifecycle management for FDA products such as Visidyne, Axone, and Eligard, as well as numerous preclinical and clinical stage products across multiple therapeutic areas. She was SVP of Technology Development at QLT, where she led the R&D organization and oversaw clinical development of the late-stage ophthalmology assets. Thanks for joining us, Lana. We also have Dr. Rogeria Moreira, Executive Director of IMA, RLT, and Solid Tumors at Novartis. Rogeria is an MD with 25 years in oncology and nuclear medicine and 17 years in pharma, leading the international medical radioligand and solid tumors area at Novartis, overseeing Lutathera, Pluvicto, and actinium programs. She's recognized for her strategic vision, leadership, and ability to drive cross-functional teams toward patient-centered results. And her commitment to mentoring young professionals and fostering a collaborative environment has had a lasting impact on the field. Welcome, Rogeria. We also have with us Joel Kumlin, Vice President of Product Development and Field Service at Artemis, a Telix company. Joel is the VP of Product Development and Field Service and a technology co-founder at Artemis. He has over a decade of experience translating ideas to commercial solutions in the medical isotope industry and built out the development team to bring cyclotron-produced gallium-68 and zirconium-89 for use with radiopharmaceuticals to market. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you, Kathryn. That was definitely a mouthful. Thanks for all of that.
So now we're going to start the panel discussion. Maybe I'll start with Brad. Brad, UHN is widely recognized as a global research leader and is home to many physicians and scientists leading Canadian isotope innovation. As the isotope and radiopharmaceutical sectors continue to grow, how is UHN's approach to fostering isotope innovation and supporting patients shifted? And what role do these emerging radiopharmaceuticals play in that?
Well, good morning, everyone, and thanks, Kathryn, for the opportunity to be here. It's great to see this organization playing such an important role in the development of this industry here in Canada. We're really excited about the work that's going on, and even more excited about the potential for this in Canada. So great to be here. I'm the Executive Vice President of Science and Research at UHN, and we're active in research and translation and clinical innovation and application across a very wide spectrum of disease. And our focus is really driven by the needs of patients, or more perhaps the unmet needs of patients. And our work in this area got started quite some time ago. Back in 2010 is when we really got interested, and it was a small group of individuals and scientists at UHN at the time at the Princess Margaret Cancer Centre that saw an opportunity in a group of patients. And these were patients that had neuroendocrine tumors. There was some emerging early evidence that radiotheranostics, that radioisotopes could play an important role in this disease. And we had made some important research investments, including the development of a research cyclotron capable of producing isotopes that could be used for molecular imaging and for early theranostics development in patients and in clinical settings. And that research investment is what enabled an early start to do some what turned out to be important pivotal work in the development of that agent, and has continued since then in a variety of areas. And while our early work was really in research and in early development, and the work that Rebecca Wong did, for example, in neuroendocrine tumors, has created interest in a much broader group of individuals and scientists and respective potential clinical indications. And that has also translated into a growing interest, not only in further pursuing R&D and new agents and new opportunities, and even an understanding of some of the radiobiology and the effects. There's lots to learn still from a scientific point of view. But now also in clinical application. And we've seen this transition over the last 3 or 4 years in particular to real clinical application and to the involvement of a much larger part of the sector in biotech and in pharma. We've seen some really important acquisitions, including of Canadian companies and new biotech startups here in Canada. We've got some great companies here today, I know. And so it's a really exciting time to see what started off as early evidence, and all of the agents that are currently available today actually started in academia. They were really driven by a small community that were really invested and committed to this development. It's made its way through, it's shown its way in patients, and now it's opened up new investment, new interest, and new expertise coming in from pharma, from biotech, and from the isotope industry itself here in Canada. So that all makes for a really exciting environment, and it's only doubled our interest in staying involved in this. And we're now involved, not only at the early R&D point of view, but in clinical application, and in building relationships and partnerships with all of these great new companies and that are interested in pursuing development in that stage. So we have, just as an example now, have participated in or initiated 19 clinical trials across a large number of cancers, a large number of isotopes. And we see a huge opportunity for that. We've made a commitment to raise $30 million for the creation of a new radiotheranostics center. We're actually halfway to meeting that target. And this is designed to create the capacity and create the infrastructure to be able to do this clinically, to expand our clinical trial activity, and to build further partnerships with industry. So again, a really exciting time for us. We've been involved for almost 15 years now, but the real bright future we know is ahead of us.
That's so exciting, especially really seeing Canadian patients receive these therapies is it's just a huge step forward for Canada. And so thank you so much, Brad, for the role that you've played in that. I think now we'll move to Lana. So Lana's the only panelist here today that has a founder in her title. So can you talk a little bit about what led you to co-found Abdera Therapeutics, and talk a little bit about the first steps that you and your colleagues took to get the company off the ground and where the company is today?
Yeah, no, thanks, Kathryn, and thanks everyone for inviting me and giving me a chance to share a little bit about the Abdera story. So I think what's really interesting is there's a very diverse audience here attending this conference. And what's really interesting is that there's so many ways that each of the different folks who are here listening to this can really, I think, participate and find success in this field, because right now we're really just in early days again on the renaissance of radiopharmaceuticals, and the door is wide open. You have companies and and financing companies pharma companies looking for good assets, looking for new technologies. And it's kind of our job collectively to open the door and invite them into the whole space. And I think that's what we tried to do at Abdera Therapeutics. A little bit about Abdera, as you mentioned. So in 2018, I joined Admare Bioinnovations as a venture partner, and they had a thought along with some of the other folks in the ecosystem, including Kathryn, your group at Triumph, to think about what's really interesting is, Canada, we have a foundation of standing on the shoulders of giants in the radioisotope and nuclear medicine field. There has been an amazing history in the past of Canada in producing radiomedical isotopes. And then there's also such a deep bench strength in the academics. And the field really started to open up commercially, I would say, probably after the approval of Xofigo, 10 years ago, and wait a minute, there's actually a therapeutic opportunity here to develop new drugs. So that's when I came in 2018, we started looking at incubating the company. And I actually knew very little to nothing about radiopharmaceuticals, I'll admit that. But what I wanted to do was find a way to really build a therapeutics company. And I took a look to see what is it that the industry is looking for. And what I felt we could focus on was really the challenge that still remains of how do you deliver therapeutics with a reasonable therapeutic index, because these isotopes are so powerful. And so we spent 2 years incubating the company and finding what we felt was really interesting intellectual property and a novel approach for the way of targeting cancer antigens and hopefully having improved a therapeutic index. So this was a therapeutics play. That's what I knew. I came out of pharma. That's what I knew. And so we're now 4 years off from incubating the company. We've gone from an idea on paper and incorporating the company to being in the clinic with our first product right now. And that's targeting DLL3 for small cell lung cancer with leveraging what our proprietary platform we call Rover, which is really using biologics to help develop novel therapeutics. So that's a little bit of a snapshot about what the company's doing. What I can tell you, when we were setting it up, there were a few things. Number one, I think that there's a large value chain. Investors know this field well. Early investors, particularly venture investors, understand that the door is wide open, and they're looking for us to tell them the story about why they should walk through the door and invest. But that's not just on the therapeutic side, like Abdera was sort of founded to develop novel drugs. There's also so many opportunities for novel technologies for manufacturing radioisotopes, and certainly Triumph has been at the forefront of that in Canada. There's opportunities for, clinician scientists to find novel targets. The field is thirsty for new cancer antigens to be able to target across this industry, and hopefully some pan-cancer antigens as well, looking perhaps at tumor microenvironment and other areas where, there might be new therapeutics. But then I also think that the area and the whole field is really ripe looking at opportunities to improve contract research organizations and manufacturing. There are so few facilities right now that can meet the need of the large therapeutic interest there has. I think that it's worthwhile for folks who are in the audience who are running facilities, and Brad, I'm really excited to hear about the new facility that UHN is building. It's a little bit, if you build it, they will come. This industry will come. It will. There's so much unmet need across the value chain, from production of isotopes and targetry through to developing therapeutics, to imaging the therapeutics, to running the clinical trials. We're just at the very beginning. So what I would say is look at what your organization does best and has deep expertise in, and I'm sure that you will find that there is the potential to raise capital and actually build a company, whether you can, scale out CRO work, or you can scale radioisotope manufacturing, or build new therapeutics. There are partners out there, and that's what we found. We were able to very successfully raise substantial capital for the company. We think, we've raised now $172 million US in capital for the company in the first few years. So I guess this is my pitch to say there's so much need out there. I'm really passionate about making sure that Canada, because we stand on the shoulder of the giants of the last century and this century as well, that we don't miss this opportunity to be global leaders in the space. That's my passionate cry for today.
That's excellent, Lana. I think having passionate at 8:18 in the morning in Vancouver time is an accomplishment in and of itself. But thank you. I totally agree. There's so much opportunity all across the value chain and supply chain. And Canada really is well poised in this sector. So maybe we can move on to Rogério Moreira. At the end of last year, Ontario became the first province in Canada to publicly fund Pluvicto, which is a significant step toward ensuring that all Canadians have access to these innovative radiopharmaceuticals. Can you discuss some of the barriers to expanding access in Canada and abroad, and highlight how Novartis has tackled them?
Yeah, sure. No, first of all, thanks, Kathryn, for inviting me. Thank you all the panelists here. I think it's a great opportunity to really share experiences, and I want to keep the excitement very high, as Lana just mentioned. I think that I agree, it's a significant step and great news for the patients in Canada. What I can share about talking about challenges, which includes technology assessments or reimbursement pathways discussion. The idea is always to, because this is all part of the process, the idea is always to work closely with health authorities by collaborating to expedite access to patients in Canada. I just want to highlight one very important topic, being an oncologist myself, that Canada, it's a legacy country in nuclear medicine and plays a crucial role in developing radiopharmaceuticals. So we can't move forward in this field. We can't push innovation without Canada. So we are very happy to be part of all this era now in nuclear medicine, that we all know that it's not new, but we have better opportunities now and new technology. Another point that I want to highlight that's really linked to all these challenges that we are talking here now is that we are investing like significantly in clinical trials. That's one important piece. Another piece is strategic partnerships and advocacy efforts in Canada. I don't want to, it's not a competition, Brad. I know you mentioned about number of clinical trials, but just to mention that we are working now with 24 clinical trials. And more important to mention that we have our leading Canadian investigators being part of all this, like really leading the international data development. So I really want to really touch this in a way that drug development, it's very key. It's a key part of the process. And another part is also like understand all the needs, all the environment, and get close to really think about, can we do better? Can we accelerate access? Because the commitment remains the same, no matter the therapeutic area. And of course, we are talking here about nuclear medicine, specifically in oncology, but the commitment remains the same. We need to be really dedicated to making radioligand therapy more accessible to those who need it most. So we definitely, as Lana just mentioned, that we have open doors. We are really working with different technology, and that's the right moment to really look at important unmet needs for our patients in Canada specifically. And we are very happy to be part of this process.
Thanks, Rogeria. Is there any, I think, as someone who lives in BC, I'm excited to see that Ontario patients are having access to some of these drugs. Do you see that it's just sort of you started in Ontario and it will move across, or do you see any regional differences so far in your process?
I think that we have differences, not just inside Canada, we have differences all over the globe, and my colleagues here will, of course, agree with me. Radioligand is something very unique, very special. And of course, the most important piece, as I mentioned, is to really understand the needs. Definitely in radioligand area, one size does not fit all. So we definitely need to understand what's happening and really work closely as we understand, can we do something different? Can we accelerate more in one area than another? There is any specific need that we need to address, but it's not homogeneous, we, of course, we have Ontario, we have Nova Scotia also approved, publicly funded in Canada. We are working to expand because, as I said, Canada, it's part of the innovation process. There is no way to push innovation in nuclear medicine without Canada. And every time that I go to any conference and discuss with other countries about nuclear medicine, Canada is always part of the discussion. Canada being a legacy country, it's very important with all the experts. And we have all them as part of our drug development. So we are very happy to be part of this new era, as I mentioned.
Thank you. And maybe I'll just take this moment to remind the folks that have tuned in that this is designed to be an interactive discussion today. So if you have questions for the Q&A, please feel free to put them into the meeting chat, and we will pick some of the questions and pose them to the panelists. Our next question goes to Joel. Joel Artemis is leading some very innovative work that enables access to critical cyclotron-produced isotopes that are used in nuclear medicine in Canada and around the world. Can you share more about that work and the importance of reliable access to the isotopes that give these radiopharmaceuticals their unique ability to diagnose, these isotopes, the unique ability to diagnose and treat cancer?
Yeah, thanks, Kathryn. Absolutely. Thanks for inviting me to the panel, and thanks for the other panelists as well. I just hearing everyone talk here before me, it kind of reminds me how cool this space is, because we have so many different views from so many different kind of angles, and so much needs to work together to deliver the patient doses. So I'm Joel Kumleen, Vice President, Product Development and Field Service at Artemis. We're a Telix company. We were acquired by Telix in April.
Oh, I think Joel is
kind of in reverse there. Oh, sorry, are we okay?
You're back.
Okay. I'll kind of tackle those questions in reverse there, where I think the advancements that we've seen in radiopharmaceuticals, both imaging and therapies, has brought a lot of hope to patients. And the reliability is, of course, critical for these patients that are looking for answers or in need of treatment. And the knock-on effects of a missed dose or a undelivered batch they're very significant, and more than I can get into just on our call today, but they range from delayed care, patient rescheduling. Patients often have to travel a long distance to get into these centers to get those images or treatments. So it's really kind of creates havoc for the system when the isotopes aren't delivered reliably. And that's been an ongoing conversation within our company too. It's everything that we do in our technology development to try to address some of these bottlenecks. And it's a conversation when we develop our products, because saving a few bucks on some hardware is nothing compared to the knock-on effects of what happens if that fails. So ultimately, we strive for reliability, and so we have a solid target system. For those who might not know, it helps people produce radioisotopes on medical cyclotrons. We've been very focused on medical isotopes, and especially medical isotopes that are late stage or have commercial products approved. So we're help people make gallium-68, zirconium-89, copper-64, and technetium. And just some of the work that we did in the early days, it was difficult to make these radiometals on medical cyclotrons. It was kind of specialized in-house R&D centers with experts could do it, but it wasn't widely available. So our goal when we first came to market was to make these radiometals as easy to produce as F-18. And I think we've been there for a few years now, so it's kind of exciting. And when we came out of the R&D side, we didn't have too much background in terms of regulatory alignment. And fantastic technology is great, but to reach the masses, you really need that regulatory alignment. And so that's really what we've been focused on for the last few years here. Just making sure that we are able to deliver products that have alignment into the end-use radiopharmaceuticals so that we can get into those patient scans and get into the clinics, get into the commercially approved products. the first product that we're looking to get tied into here is one of Telix's PSMA products. We have a PDUFA date next month, so we're excited and looking forward to a pending approval there. And that's kind of a very exciting time for Artemis as a whole, because we've been working our team came out of Triumph before that, so we've been working for over 10 years to kind of get this technology into patients. And I think one of the key aspects that we've done is taken what was traditionally a regulatory burden that was too big for individual sites to take on themselves and really own that process within Artemis and turn what used to be a big regulatory lift into more of a standard tech transfer process for our customers, where Artemis kind of standardizes the process, provides those products, consumables, GMP grade cassettes and reagent kits to produce the radioisotopes, and then really ties that and delivers a product that is easy for the customers to integrate. Of course, there's always going to be a lift for the manufacturers themselves. I'm not saying that we've reduced it to zero, which would be ideal, but that there's always going to be a tech transfer process there. And that's really kind of where we've aligned our focus to get into the supply chain. And everything goes back to the reliability of isotopes and access to isotopes. Products like zirconium-89 have limited supply, and so our real goal is to expand availability of isotopes that are hard to get now and make that a reliable process, because we understand that if these aren't delivered in a reliable manner, that's just not going to work for the patients or the healthcare systems.
Great, thanks, Joel. It's great to hear the perspective on the production side. We do have a question in the Q&A, so others, please feel free to add more questions. But we have a question for Lana. You've highlighted the difficulties in manufacturing and research support that arises from the sparsity of well-equipped CROs and a complete solution from radiochemistry to biodistribution experiments. Can you share or reveal Abdera's experimental pipeline? And are all experiments in-house? And if so, what's the key to bringing these studies in-house?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, and it's much more eloquently stated than I stated it. So a few things. So we obviously, the only target in our pipeline that we've identified to date is our first program that's in the clinic for targeting DLL3 for small cell lung cancer and large cell neuroendocrine carcinomas. So I can't disclose individually what the follow-on targets are. And obviously that's, we, for the second time, talked a little bit about our second program that's about a year behind our current program, and we expect to file an IND, have a second IND filed this time next year, but we haven't disclosed what the target is. And that's really because I'm actually going to say that's good because, there's a lot of competition in the space, and which is good. That means that the space is very busy, and that people are starting to work on targets other than SSTR2, which has the approved drug Lutathera, and PSMA, which has the approved drug Pluvicto, and there are many other drugs that are being developed against those targets right now in the clinic and preclinically. What I can say is that we made a strategic decision, at least initially in our first programs, that we would go after solid tumors as opposed to hematological cancers. That doesn't mean we won't do that down the road. But what we do tell people is they're all solid tumor indications, and they are not PSMA and SSTR2. So we've really taken, because of, we believe in the differentiated approach to targeting and controlling pharmacokinetics, and thus the therapeutic index with our novel platform, that we can actually go after that broader target universe. So that's the way we've thought about things. And then in terms of how we do our work, so, as I mentioned, we launched the company in early 2021. We do have our own facility here in Vancouver where the company was founded, and I'm really proud of that. So we have a 12,000 square foot facility that we call it our discovery engine. So we have a really dedicated group of scientists who basically do all of the development from selection of the target all the way up through to nomination of a development candidate. And what a development candidate is, for those of you who aren't on the drug discovery side, means that you formally selected and locked down the structure that you're taking into IND enabling studies and moving it towards filing for an IND to be able to go into clinical studies. So we do a lot of the work internally, and we thought that was important because when you have a new approach, nothing beats hands-on innovation. So we do a lot of the work internally. That being said, we have partnered with external vivariums that can do in vivo imaging. And we're pretty much, because they're so limited in who can do those kind of very detailed experiments and like image, mouse models, NHP models, and the like, we'll go anywhere in the world where we can find those capabilities. I think one of the things that we made a decision on was recently we've decided to even expand our facilities more because having hands-on to innovation is really critical. So this year, we're now in the process of opening up our own internal imaging center as well, so that we can quickly image across different tumor models and also build out CMC and process development so our scientists get their hands on the molecules. And nobody knows our products better than we do, right? Even though we rely upon contract manufacturing organizations to help us make the conjugates, and then contract drug manufacturing organizations at this point to radio label them. But I would say, I think that as we advance our programs through, we are very committed to building our own facilities as well, because in the radiopharmaceutical space, we like to say you can't scale up, you have to scale out. It's not like traditional drug discovery and manufacturing. So we partner with people, short strokes, we partner with people, but nothing beats having your hands on your own facilities to drive those insights and innovation. And I think that's what's given us speed to get our first program to the clinic, and our first IND opened within really 3 years of founding of the company. So hopefully that helps answer things.
Thanks, Lana. We have another question that's sort of related. With the advancements in radioligand therapy and increasing diversity of isotopes being explored, how do you see Canada balancing innovation with practical challenges like isotope supply chain stability, manufacturing scalability? And I think this is sort of the meat of the question. Are there specific collaborative models or infrastructure investments that Canada could or should be making to bridge these gaps? Maybe Brad, yes, as someone who's got a new $30 million initiative, can you talk a little bit about the gaps that you saw and how you
Yeah,
dealt
I
with
mean, there are all kinds of gaps throughout the whole, spectrum and chain that we're talking about, from discovery to company creation to drug development in Canada to regulatory approval, and then to sort of financial and clinical approval. And many of these happened in different spots and with different groups. Some are at the national level, some are at the provincial level, some are within institutions, some are sort of collaborations, and all of that needs attention. I do think it would be great for Canada to think about a strategy in this field that would, create a requirement or an opportunity for all the parts of the system to coordinate a little bit better in thinking about how to do this. For example, wouldn't it be great if there was a unique regulatory path in Canada for Canadian companies that would also facilitate, early access or rapid access to early phase clinical trials done in Canada. We have extraordinary organizations in this country across many of our provinces that can participate in that. And then, at the end stage, which we're starting to see now too, is around access and making sure patients across Canada will be able to benefit from these new therapies that aren't in the big centers that have where the early trials are done. There are unique aspects of this therapy that can, create additional challenges there that we need to be thinking about now and making sure that, that everyone can benefit from that. So it does need a, real coordinated strategy around that. And I think you've got strong participants at many pieces along that chain that would love to jump in and help out and sort of help build that larger strategy.
Thanks, Brett. I think that's a really important point. I really want to thank the Melody and her team at CNIC, because I think, a few years ago, there was sort of nothing really that was trying to bring the community together. And I think we're really proud of the work that we've done at CMIE, where we were successful in the Strategic Innovation Funds to bring $35 million in funding from the federal government to support exactly this. How do we build collaborations and networks and improve infrastructure? And I think the next pieces are this whole, how do we work together to provide and smooth the regulatory and access path? If we could all work together and make Canada the go-to place for early stage radiotherapeutic development, I think that would be a wonderful thing to see, and work in a coordinated way where we have the whole supply chain involved, everyone from academic researchers to multinational companies to this important people in the supply chain to the regulators to the folks that decide what drugs are available for patients. So I think that there's certainly work to be done, but I'm really grateful that the CNIC has sort of started to really take its place in the ecosystem, and hopefully we can continue to work together to bring more funding in. The CMIE program was started, but we started working on it in 2018. We got funded. We made our funding announcement in 2022, but program technically started in 2020. So we're actually coming to the end of that funding. And I think we're really excited to try to develop a funding renewal, like in the new world, and trying to make these things accessible to everyone. But I think that there's a lot of political uncertainty coming up, and maybe that's sort of where I'd like to steer the conversation. Political uncertainty. Certainly, there's been just a giant change in the context of everything, really, since the U.S. election results, and we're looking at a likely change in government in Canada. How has this political context change affected your organizations, and what actions are you deploying as a result?
Kathryn, could I just say something there as well, which,
Sure.
but when you look at, we've all said the radiotherapeutics space and radioisotope space has really taken off again. It's a renaissance over the past 5 to 10 years. But, a lot of times as Canadians, we're very humble and we don't recognize the opportunity that we have. And if you look at, there was a lot of talk last year. There were pretty much three very large transactions in 2024 that happened where pharma bought into these three large companies. There was the acquisition of Raise Bio by BMS for, I think that was around $4 billion. There was the acquisition of Point by Lilly, and there was the acquisition of Fusion by AstraZeneca, and many, many other deals, including the role Novartis has had as being a world leader in this space. 2 out of 3 of those very large M&A transactions were led. Those companies were founded and led by former CEOs of CPDC in Hamilton. Like, if you look at that as a fact alone, it's really incredible. And you look at that, the world is really coming to Canada. They see the opportunity here. Artemis, under Joel, it says, a Telix company. And, if you look at the work that ITM is doing here in Canada to promote isotopes, and, the world sees us that way. And so I think it's our job as an ecosystem to make sure, regardless of who ultimately provincially or federally is in power, that this is a time that Canada has in decades been building towards. We're recognized outside of Canada as being a world leader in being able to manufacture radioisotopes, our expertise in, clinical development, the willingness to, and the flexibility of our regulatory agencies. And I think that, it's our job collectively, everyone on this call, because if you're on this call, you're interested in this space and involved somehow, to make sure that whoever is in power and, understands that this is not just one thing that Canada can do well at. This is our time, based upon decades, to say it's already here, and making sure that they understand this is a win for creating jobs. There is a massive need for highly qualified personnel. There are large academic organizations like, at UHN, at McMaster, across the country, at Frederick Institute, at UBC, that are training the next generation. So it's like, I think we need to just make sure that we're constantly like a very loud voice in their ear, that we are uniquely positioned. And I love what Rogeria said, that there is no way to push nuclear medicine forward without Canada. So ask whatever government it is, whatever agency, help us do that, because the world sees that. We need you to see that. So that's kind of my overall kind of pitch on this unique time that we have here.
Thanks, Lana. I guess this is sort of a related question in the chat. So I think there's so much going on that's really positive for Canada. We have an opportunity to be a global leader. Are there any weak points in the chain or areas that we really need to bolster as a country? What do you see on the radar as an area that we need to pay more attention to or provide more resource for?
Kathryn, I can jump in here from the isotope supply side, and I'm guessing the panelists here can agree here too. I think there's Canada, as we've said, has been shared around the call. It is a wonderful country for isotope development, and it does have a strong isotope history. And at the same time, there are gaps in our isotope supply, and there's really nice potential therapeutic isotopes that aren't available in Canada at all. Astatine-211 being a nice clean emitter with some really promising potential on it. Triumph has a little bit of capability to produce them, but it's really only for kind of very, very early stage work. And beyond that, we don't have any other capabilities in Canada to produce that isotope. So there's certainly some gaps for our therapeutic isotope development. And without those isotopes, the radiopharmaceuticals will never get off the ground in Canada.
I think there's a need also, for continued investment in research and discovery in this field. Someone put in the chat, we need more startups, and it'd be great to have a whole bunch of other companies like Abdera all over starting up, across Canada. And this really stems from early stage R&D, identification of new targets, of new biologics, and as you just heard from Joel, even new isotopes in general. There's need for better research and understanding in how these different isotopes influence biology, influence effect, maybe combined with other therapies, how they're going to be part of the larger armamentarium of therapies that where they're going to have to find a strong clinical indication. And then we also need to think about, more clever strategies for ensuring that when Lana's drug does reach its IND, that trial will happen in Canada. And there's an incentive for it to happen here quickly, that Canadian patients can benefit first, and that the further development of those agents will continue to happen in Canada. Right now, those incentives, aren't there in all the right ways. And I think that we should be thinking about all of those things now so that we're not competing, or having to recompete in a new market, that we're thinking about this early on from a strategic point of view and how Canada can be the country where people want to bring those to as opposed to sort of only one stage where they move out and go elsewhere.
Yeah. If I can add to my colleagues here, one very important piece that's going to be interesting for our audience here, because we're all interested in the same topic. One important piece is that collaboration is key. Oncology is fast and furious. We always say that. So we need to be prepared for all the challenges, because it's not something that, and I'm always telling this to my colleagues in the field, that nuclear medicine is not something that you can copy and paste other models. It's something unique, and you need to be very close and understand all the needs from the market, all the needs from our patients, everything that comes from different therapeutic areas. We need to aggregate all this and discuss together, because Lana just mentioned here, and it's very important that the moment it's here, the moment it's now. So, and oncology is always moving fast. So how can we adapt? How can we think about all the challenges, and what's the best way to really move fast? Because technology pushes technology, but inside the technology, we always need to understand about the learning curve, because we can move in one with speed, but we have different stakeholders at the same time. So I think that's the only important to me all the time. The word that always important to me and the team is collaboration, and always trying to accelerate things to those who need that most, our Canadian patients.
Thanks, Rogeria. And I think that all of the pieces that we're talking about are really important. So to me, it really starts to point to the importance of having a national medical isotope ecosystem strategy where we're covering not just one thing, right? So, I mean, you're trying to scale up. Yes, that's important. We're trying to do clinical, but yes. So I think we need a strategy that encompasses all of these pieces, everything from training new people and attracting them into the sector, to providing incentives and funding for early stage research, providing funding to get those early stage technologies translated and scaled up, and then finding partners. I do think one of the things that we are dealing with at the CMIE and at Triumph is this new era of protectionism that we're seeing at the government level, where, to be honest, I'm not sure that we would have successfully spun out Artemis today, because a lot of the government funding comes with government sign-offs and approvals, which really make it very difficult for companies to pull in technologies and commercialize them, because what if Artemis was not allowed to be sold to Telix? Then we would, you're all kind of stuck, right? If Abdera had been unable to accept investment from foreign investors, what would have happened? And so I think a huge piece of this is us collaborating at an ecosystem level, but developing a strategy that hits all of these pieces and provides funding and support all along the way, because every ecosystem fails. If you've got gaps, then everything sort of grinds to a halt.
Yeah, and Kathryn, I couldn't agree more. And the thing is, and we've all been saying it, that the time is now. Investors and pharma and other things become like, okay, it's exciting. What is our play going to be in the radiotherapeutics, radioisotope space? But focus can start to shift over time as well, right? And so that's why there is a really critical urgency right now that we're all rolling up our sleeves and working together. I think Ruggiero said we're all like it's almost a collective learning curve that we're on, and that's the ecosystem we are. And so right now the industry is poised that when one company does well and learns things, we all learn. But focus therapeutically, which drives a lot of investment, which creates the need for CROs and CDMOs and funding clinical studies and founding of new companies, that attention can drift, right? When we think about, we've seen the ups and downs of gene therapy and cell therapies, and sort of things come in and out of vogue, or there is a period of time in which the focus remains on those opportunities. And so the challenge of getting radiotherapy as one of the standard pillars and modalities, it's already a standard pillar of oncology treatment along with surgery and chemotherapy. But the current view of like using these medical isotopes for, precision oncology is really like, the time is really, really now. And I know that sounds a little bit broad and wide, but it is really, really true. And we have to make sure that we're just leveraging
it. And I think one of the other challenges that we see, especially here out in BC, is I think we have more cyclotrons than PET scanners in BC, which is a unique, a unique scenario. I don't know too many other places in the world that have that, and it's kind of cool, but we kind of need more scanners to kind of get that system rolling out and getting those PET scans for our patients. So I think in terms of like our first, to kind of put this in perspective, the first customer that we sold our system to in Denmark, they had 5 PET scanners in a hospital, and at that time BC had 2 public PET scanners and also a couple for R&D. So there's certainly work to be done to fill those gaps in getting this to be used in patients in BC. I don't want to speak for the rest of Canada. I see some comments coming in here for more broadly across Canada, but I kind of know my local area a bit more than the rest of the country here. Yeah, I'd like to kind of work with our system here to see what we can do. And I think that more than just having F18, being able to have other isotopes on there, I think that can be a collaborative effort to kind of bring more value from a high capital investment. And I think the radiopharmaceuticals, as there's becomes more than just FDG, I think that can all help that value proposition, and we can work together with our respective governments to kind of get this more broadly available to patients.
Great, thanks, Joel. So I think we are almost at the hour. Melody, should I continue, or did you want to move to a wrap up?
Yeah, I can wrap things up quickly. I recognize we're almost at time for everyone here. Thank you, Kathryn, and to our panelists for joining us today. I always really love participating in these types of web events because I think they're really able to bring together such unique perspectives right across the country. So thanks to you all for sharing your time with us this morning. Just before we wrap up, there are a few upcoming events that I'd like to mention to everyone today. The first is coming up in just 1 week. On March 4th, join us for another web event held in partnership with the International Atomic Energy Agency and representatives from the Government of Canada and the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission. For anyone who joined us in one of our last webinars of 2024 with the IAEA back in November about the Rays of Hope campaign, next week's event is actually part 2 of the conversations we started in the fall. This event really is meant to announce and sign a new agreement between the CNIC and the IAEA, which will allow for greater Canadian involvement in the Rays of Hope campaign specifically. The QR code that's up on your screen right now will take you directly to the event page to register if you're interested, so please feel free to do so. For anyone who's not aware, the Rays of Hope initiative is a global campaign that's led by the IAEA to support the delivery of cancer care and radiotherapy infrastructure, particularly in low and middle income countries. I really liked what Rogeria said, that there's no way to advance nuclear medicine without Canadian involvement, and that's certainly very true. So from a CNIC perspective, we see our support of the Rays of Hope initiative and global cancer care more broadly as an important next step for Canada as we continue to think about what's needed to grow our leadership abroad. So I hope to see everyone virtually next week at that event. The other event that I'd like to flag very quickly, just in my last minute here, is another great opportunity to see collaboration between industry and academia in action. The Canadian Radiotheranostics Leaders Summit is a 2-day event held on June 12th and 13th this year in Toronto. That's hosted by the CNIC, a coalition of several leading academic centers, including the University Health Network, BC Cancer, London Health Sciences, and the Centre for Addiction and Mental Health, in partnership with Kathryn and the CMIE. This event is designed to bring together 400 plus leaders from all parts of the industry and supply chain, as well as the healthcare and research communities, to discuss some of the key advancements in the radiotheranostics space and opportunities for the Canadian ecosystem to take that leadership to the next level. Our invitations to register are out now, so please reach out to CNIC for more information on how to get involved in this event. At the Leader Summit, we hope to build upon some of the important conversations across the industry like the one that we had today. So with that, I just wanted to take a moment to thank again our panelists for sharing your insights with us, and to Kathryn and the CMIE for your support and partnership of this web event. If anyone would like to rewatch the event, it will also be shared to the CNIC YouTube and our website at canadianisotopes.ca in the next few days. And with that, thanks to everyone for joining us, and we hope to see you at our next event. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.